Hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to EFA200, my last podcast of 2020 leading into 2021. Oh hell yes, I'm in 2021. And today I want to talk about a lesson to be learned from Mexico, the Mexicans and themselves, right? And before I do so, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, click on the bell, share with those you love and respect, especially those that believe in wellness. Let's get moving here. I want to focus on cases today. I want to focus on cases because that's what the world and media seems to, government and all those individuals seem to focus on is cases. And I'm going to look at cases. I'm going to compare my country, Canada, with Mexico, the country that I've been in for the last maybe a week and a half. My family, another week to go, enjoying our traditional last 12 years of Christmas and New Year's and property shopping and so on and so forth, right? Love Mexico, always have a lot of respect for the Mexicans as a culture, the la joie de vivre, they have the culture in them. And let's get into these cases that I've talked about. In Mexico right now, today, we're December 26th, or Boxing Day, right? You ready to box? Let's box into these numbers here. Total cases in Mexico right now is 1.35 million. That's a lot of cases, 1.35 million. In Canada right now, 534 million. Basically, Mexico has 2.5 times the amount of cases that Canada has. That's a lot of cases in comparison, right? But let's look at the population of Mexico. And the Mexican population is nearly 129 million people, and the Canadian population is nearly 38 million people. So Mexico has 3.4 times the amount of population that Canada has, but yet they only have 2.5 times the amount of cases that Canada has. But let's get a little bit more granular here. The density of person per kilometer square in Mexico compared to Canada, Mexico has 66 persons per kilometer square when you look at geographical territory, right? So they have 66 person per kilometer square. Canada has a whopping 4. Canada has 4 person per kilometer square compared to Mexico, 66 persons per kilometer square. So you would think that Mexico would have a hell of a lot more person or cases of persons with COVID as compared to Canada, but they don't, even though they have 3.5 times the amount of population, or 3.4 times the amount of population, and 2.5 times the amount of cases that Canada has, but they have 62 more person per kilometer square than Canada has. Let's keep moving forward here. It's almost like there should be a reverse, right? When you look at Canada and US, and not Canada, US, when you look at Canada and Mexico, there should be almost a reverse, but Canada seems to have also per kilometer square a lot more rats than ratones. And I've talked about this on previous podcasts. We seem to be the most civilized when you look at healthcare system and so on and so forth, education on health and etc., which the world is being proven wrong when you look at COVID. COVID is related to unhealthy people, right? But Canada, the mecca of healthcare globally, when you look at the world, they look at Canada as a mecca of healthcare. But yet, when you're looking at persons per kilometer square, when you look at cases and that, the math don't make sense. We should be a hell of a lot less, right? But when I look at society, when I look at Canada and the civilized nations around our nation, and you look at all the media that's going on and the enforcement that's going on in the world, when you look at COVID, when 4 officers show up at people's door to serve 1 ticket, when 4 officers show up at a pastor's door to serve 1 ticket, when officers show up at hockey rinks outdoor to serve tickets or tase an individual if they don't comply, right? We have a lot more of that in Canada per square kilometer. Probably the reverse in numbers that Mexico has a 66 to 4. It's probably reverse in Canada. We have a lot more rats in Canada ratting out on individuals because the big famous Calgary hockey situation, that's from a complaint, right? That is from a complaint. And I'm going to speak to my previous background when I look at enforcement. The amount of frivolous calls that I managed when I used to be an enforcement officer for the government of Ontario, and the ridiculous waste of people's money, the people's funds. Remember, the government has no money. Ontario truly does not have money, has a lot of debt, does not have any money, but they take the people's money, and the way the money is being spent frivolously in our nation. And I'm going to get into the health of people, the reason why I'm talking about money right now, and I'm talking to COVID, and I'm getting into this. When you look at our healthcare system in Canada, and I can speak from knowledge, training, and experience, the amount of hospitals knocking on businesses' doors with their hands out looking for money. And again, I'm speaking from knowledge, training, and experience here. And they're looking for money, why? Because they have no money. Hospitals are in an unprecedented state right now, financial state. They truly, across Canada, look at the numbers, do your research, they have no money. They're begging for money to run their system, right? And yet, we're supposed to be one of the most civilized and productive and financial and healthcare savvy nation of the world. And it's a great country, don't get me wrong, Canada's a great country. But I've been in Mexico now for a couple of weeks, and I come here all the time. Let's just say yearly, every other year, and that kind of stuff. I do spend a lot of vacation time in Mexico when I do come here. And what I've noticed in my last 2 weeks here, it's a normal life. They apply the rules and regulation of COVID. Every business, I have my temperature taken more often here than I had in Canada thus far, but people are respectful of each other. We don't have the Karen and the Bobs and the Kyles here in Mexico. People that go about their own business. They keep their nose in their own business, probably for obvious reasons, because unlike Canada, where the ratons are protected, right? They're kind of putting halos above their heads, and they're made out to be kings and queens when they're really couch potatoes, sitting unhealthy individuals that end up being the cases of COVID. Those are the individuals on their phones, the window FBIs, right? Those are the individuals we're dealing with in our society. And when you look at the numbers here, when you look at the math, the numbers don't make sense when you look at Canada, supposed to be the nation's capital of Mecca of healthcare. Let's keep moving on here. I'm going to speak from knowledge here when I say my previous background. From the frivolous stuff, and I mentioned this before, we had a bylaw officer, this is a year ago approximately, showed my wife was training her shepherd. She was a puppy at the time, and she was taking her to a country town baseball diamond where you can close the gate and keep the dog inside the baseball diamond, which she used to go every early morning, 7 a.m.-ish, 8 a.m.-ish at the early morning, and run the dog and train it. Today we could walk her without a leash because my wife properly trained her, right? A beautiful shepherd. But when she was doing her training with her in the gated baseball diamond, it was a Sunday morning, a team was showing up, and this woman, belligerent woman, came up to my wife screaming with children, remember, and she's driving other parents' children, think about this, and she's screaming and vulgar upon vulgar, just puking vulgar out of her mouth at my wife, how she should not be in this baseball diamond, it's people like her and blah, 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 right? And I'm going to speak to my wife, and I'm just going to take off my hat to her because she is a very respectful woman when it comes to her shepherd and going in there prepared and taking out whatever she brings in, and she cleans up after her dog Luna. And she came home and told me that morning what transpired, and she left. And this person took my wife's license plate number, and around 9 a.m. that Sunday morning, a bylaw officer shows up at her door. Long story short, this bylaw officer was arguing with us that we should know the law, that our dog is not allowed to be in that baseball diamond, even though there's a dog sign on that fence of that baseball diamond telling to clean up after your dog, right? And my wife mentioned that, and I mentioned my previous background and so on and so forth, and the bylaw officer, who did not know the law because he was actually enforcing a law that did not exist, a bylaw that did not exist, was argumentative with us in one sense, a very persuasive in his way that we should know the law and that basically she's not allowed to bring her dog to the baseball diamond. Long story short, we did our research. You're allowed to have the dog in the baseball diamond if nobody's there, and you're supposed to clean up after yourself after using the baseball diamond, which my wife does. We called the management of the city that day, and the management actually told my wife that they don't need to require to know all the bylaws. You show up at somebody's door at 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning to enforce a bylaw that does not exist, you better know your bylaws, right? Because we did our homework, so we did our research, and we requested that they call that person that made that complaint and advise her, the ill-educated individual, that the complaint she made was actually a frivolous complaint that the bylaw did not exist, that which was complaining about, and also educate your bylaw officer that enforced the bylaw on a Sunday morning at 9 a.m. on a bylaw that did not exist. And the reluctant manager did so and called us back reluctantly to tell us that he did his work. Whether he did, he didn't, that's so be it, we moved on, but we educated individuals and I made sure that the media, not the media, the social media world knew about that. And I want to move on to that because I want to talk about frivolous money. We have child abduction cases on the rise in this world. We have, whether it's your rapes and your crimes and your divorces and your suicides and everything that's going on with COVID, and we can keep going on here, but there doesn't seem to be enough money for that, correct? There's never enough money for hospitals, never enough money for the child abductions or old unsolved cases, and you talk to law enforcement, they don't have the money, but they seem to have unlimited money to enforce 4 people showing up at somebody's door to give a ticket, or hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of officers lined up, social media everywhere. We have thousands upon thousands of social media clips on the web throughout the world of the unlimited amount of enforcement officers that we miraculously found all this money to enforce COVID, right? But yet we have the numbers, if you look at the numbers, and if you look for whether it's suicides and bankruptcies and divorces and all that stuff all on the right, we don't have money for that. Is it because there's no revenue generation in child abduction? Is there no revenue generation when it comes to divorces? Is there no revenue generation when it comes to poverty? Is money only being spent on where there's revenue generation? I'm asking you the question, governance. Because we live in a world right now that wellness is not doing well. Wellness is not doing well. And we're sucking the wellness out of individuals, whether they're families, whether they're small businesses. We all know the numbers. I don't have to get into that. And leading into 2021, I want to speak to governance, and I'm speaking to all out there, right? Get your faces out of the windows. Get your mouths off the phones. Leave your neighbors alone. Focus on your health and wellness. Get off the couch. Start moving. Remove the bags of chips from your mouths. And invest in yourself. Invest in you and forget about your neighbors and forget about what other people are doing. Get out of your own glass house. You know, if you were to peel back the roofs on everybody's house after doing all this complaining, you'd be surprised that they're only echoing their own lives. I want to go into 2021 healthy with wellness. And I want to wish each and every one of you a healthy, productive, leave your neighbors alone, leave society alone, do what the Mexicans are doing, enjoying life respectfully, and they're respectfully doing it while applying COVID rules and regulations. Jean-Guy Bourguignon, EFA200.